Hello. For the assignment in Unit 2, Activity 1, we're going to do something a little bit different. You're not just going to do a straightforward writing assignment where you write a paragraph or an essay. We're going to actually create a comic strip. And so the goal is going to be to create a comic strip which tells a short story, and you will write an accompanying paragraph demonstrating your understanding of genre and archetypes in your comic strip story. So you'll be submitting two things to me, both into the same Dropbox. You'll be submitting a comic strip, and you'll be submitting a paragraph explaining that comic strip. And so for the comic strip, you need 6 panels or cells. So if you look at a comic strip, it's broken up into different boxes, and we call those boxes panels or cells. And so you need at least 6 of them. You need to have a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, and it should include at least one plot archetype. So if you go back to the content and you look at the list of plot archetypes, make sure that your story fits one of those plot archetypes. You're going to need characters in your story, and you should have at least one character archetype that's represented in the story. You should have dialogue. If you look at comic strips, and we'll look at an example here in a second, when you look at comic strips, there's always dialogue. The characters are in conversation with each other, or oftentimes the main character will talk to him or herself and have inner thoughts. And so you'll use what we call speech bubbles to show the dialogue or the conversation. And then you're going to include descriptive details. So you're going to have scenery in the background. You're going to hopefully incorporate objects into the comic strip to add detail. And to give you an example of what that would look like, if you look down to the bottom here, it says there's a comic strip exemplar below. If we look down here, you'll see the exemplar, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You'll see there's 6 cells or panels, and they tell a little story about 2 young girls going into a haunted house. Okay? So that's what you're going to produce, is a comic strip that tells a story in at least 6 cells or panels. I will say one thing about this comic strip. It works, and it has everything it needs, but the ending is a bit abrupt. At the end, it doesn't quite clearly show what happens to the characters. You do want a clear beginning, middle, and end to your story. So you do want to tell a quick little story. You don't have a lot of space in 6 panels or cells, but you do want a clear beginning, middle, and end. You don't want your story to be confusing or it to be unclear what happens at the ending of your story. Secondly, you do need to include a paragraph explaining that comic strip. And so in the paragraph, you're going to identify and explain your comic strip's genre. You're going to explain your comic strip's plot and identify at least one plot archetype that you used. And you're going to describe your comic strip's characters and identify at least one character archetype that you used. And your paragraph should be approximately 8 to 10 sentences. And so again, if we look down below this comic strip exemplar, you can see an example of a paragraph explaining it. And so it talks about what is the genre of this comic strip and what are the plot and character archetypes that we use. Again, the whole purpose of this activity is that you show that you understand genre and archetypes. So that's the end goal, is to produce a comic strip and an accompanying paragraph. How are you going to get to that goal? Well, what I would say is follow these assignment instructions. And if you follow these steps, hopefully you'll be able to produce a nice comic strip. So number 1, I would say choose your genre. Think about the genre that you want to use and that you want your story to fit in. Are you going to tell a drama, a comedy, a mystery, a horror? Go back and look at the genres on the content page if you need a reminder. Once you know the type of story you're going to tell, brainstorm. Think about who are your characters going to be? What's going to happen to them? What is the location? And keep it simple. I'm not asking you to tell a very drawn-out, detailed story here. You've only got 6 panels to use, so you've got to tell a relatively simple story. Okay? So think about that. And one way to kind of make sure that you're on track is you can outline your comic strip in step 3 here. So you can use a comic strip outline, which looks like this. And if I download it and open it up It's a Microsoft Word document, and it looks like this. And feel free, you could print this if you wanted to, and you could kind of do little sketch drawings in each box showing how you're going to tell your story. Or maybe you just want to write in here just in words what you hope to accomplish in each panel of the comic strip. It's up to you. You don't have to submit to me your comic strip outline. I'm just suggesting that you pre-plan your comic strip before you actually start creating it. You want to know what it's going to look like and the structure of the story before you actually start. Okay. What else? Number 4, once you've kind of got your ideas and your outline, you can go ahead and create your comic strip. And you can do the comic strip a couple different ways. You can draw it yourself. So if you wanted to, you could use something like this and just, you can print this off twice and use one as your outline and one as your final copy. And you could draw your comic strip into these boxes. You could use your own paper, and maybe if you think you need more space, by all means use your own paper. So you can certainly draw your comic strip yourself, with hand drawn if you want, or you can use a computer program, or you can use a variety of different methods to create your comic strip. I'm going to let you decide. What I would say is a program online called Storyboard that is pretty easy to use, and if you're not sure how you want to create your comic strip, I would definitely look at Storyboard that. And I've given you instructions here on how you would go about using it. You can use Storyboard that for free with your My Tools to Go account. So for example, if I open up the page right here, it looks like this. And if I go log in, I'm already logged into my computer here with my school board account, which is a Google account, just like your My Tools to Go is a Google account. So if you're already logged into your My Tools to Go, just click Google, and for me it'll take me right in. If you're not logged into your My Tools to Go, then it'll ask for your Gmail account, and you can just put in your My Tools to Go information and you can get in. And so what I'd want to do is I'd want to create a new storyboard. And what you'll see is I can give it a title. So say I just want to call it Haunted House. Okay. So say I've decided to create a horror comic strip here. And so right now I've got 3 panels. I want to have 6. Now, be warned, they won't let you create more than 6, I don't think. If you want to create more than 6 panels, then they expect you to pay, and I do not want you to have to pay for anything. So again, 6 panels is perfectly fine. So if I go down here to add cells, I can click 6 cells here. Oops. And then go, let's go. And now I've got 6 cells. And now what I can do is I can choose my scenery, I can choose my characters, I can choose different objects to put into my comic strip here. So for example, say I want, and you can use the search function here to find whatever you want. So say I wanted a school. Okay, so I click on schools and they give me all sorts of different pictures that relate to schools. And say my first scene is going to take place inside a classroom. I can just drag that and put it into the scenery here. And I can play around with the walls, the floors, the chests, the desks, the chalkboard. I can do all sorts of different things. I can rotate, change whatever I want here. But say I'm happy with that. Say I want characters. I can come up with all sorts of different characters, and I can choose, like, for example, they've got monster characters, they've got kids, they've got teenagers. So say I want kids in my scene. So I can click kids and say I want this little girl right here. I want her in my scene. So I can put her in my scene and I can change her hair, her skin, her eyes. I can do whatever I want. You can play around with it and do all sorts of different things. So say I want her in my scene. Okay? And then say I want objects in my scene. Say I want a book. And so I can go up here to search and I can type book. No thanks, I don't want to upgrade. And I can just find different book items that I can put in. So say I want to bring this book and I want to put it, say, here. And then I can make it smaller, bigger, whatever I want. And I can fit it on the desk there, right? So you can put in your objects, you can put in your characters, your scenery, and you're going to create, again, a 6 panel or 6-cell story. One other thing that you'll need to include, remember, is speech bubbles. So we're going to have characters talking to each other. So we can put in a speech bubble here. Oops, if I want to move this here, and then I can have her speaking, and I can type in whatever I want her to say right here. Hello. So you're going to have to include dialogue as well too. Okay, but that's how you can create a little comic strip. You can go ahead and save it, and then once you save it, you can download it as a PDF file and submit that file to me. Okay. Again, there'll be instructions all in here about how you can open up your storyboard and how you can save it and download it. There is also a video right here that you can click on that will give you more explanation. It's a YouTube clip on how to use Storyboard. Remember, after you've created your comic strip, that you do have to write a paragraph explaining your genre and your archetypes, and that paragraph should be about 8 to 10 sentences. And then you're going to submit your comic strip and your paragraph to the Dropbox right here. If you're hand drawing your comic strip, or if you're using a different method for creating your comic strip and not using Storyboard, that's fine. You might run into some issues submitting your comic strip to the Dropbox. If you do, please let me know, and we'll find another way for you to submit your comic strip. Maybe you can email it to me, or if you're coming to school, you can drop it off and hand it to me if it's hand-drawn, right? There are alternatives, just again, to get you thinking here. You could certainly use a different comic strip maker online. There's all sorts of them. I would not pay for anything. If you go to a site that lets you make comic strips and it asks you to pay, I would avoid it. There's nothing in this course that I want you to have to pay for. But there are other free ones out there if you want to look. Some students like to use PowerPoint or Prezi or Google Docs or Microsoft Word. I'm not so sure that any of those would work better and would be easier for creating a comic strip than Storyboard that. But if you're used to those programs and you have an idea about how you want to create a comic strip using one of those, go ahead. Again, the format and the program that you use is entirely up to you. Make sure you do check out the comic strip exemplar and the example paragraph here. And do check out the rubric. This is how you'll be graded on your comic strip. And once you've created the comic strip and the paragraph, again, you're going back up to the Dropbox and you're submitting right here. If you have any questions, please let me know.